Why do you think idea evaluation is very much required for current day entrepreneurs, sir?
Yeah, so idea evaluation is critical, right? Across all businesses.
So these are all excellent criteria, sir. I think this is where the consultant come in handy to evaluate these ideas or
So
opportunities.
consultants can help, Venkat, but from my experience, entrepreneur is the best judge.
Is there anything that the entrepreneurs can look at to extensively carry forward the research in terms of idea evaluation? Is there any
So,
principles that you can think of?
yeah. So there are other frameworks as well.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of ProLead ThoughtCast Numbers and Beyond. From 2012, ProLead has been helping many business ideas to transform into successful enterprises. And also, they have helped navigate many business ventures, the complex journey of startups and scale-ups. We are here to present our first series of podcasts which goes from ideas to enterprises. Today, we are also starting the podcast from the frame standpoint or the start point of the business, that is, idea. But this is not just a normal idea. This is an idea which has been clearly evaluated and examined by professionals before you could invest your time, money, and passion into it. I'm very excited and happy to be hosting my founder and principal consultant, Mr. Prashanth, sir, with us. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thanks, Venkat. I'm super excited to be doing this. It's been in the pipeline for quite some time, but here we are. Finally, we're doing this first episode.
Yes, sir.
I hope there are many more episodes and series to follow this one.
Yes, sir. So before we dive into our podcast, why don't we tell our viewers why did we choose this topic of idea to enterprise and what does it mean to the viewers?
So yes, Venkat, like how you articulated in your intro, right? So we've had the privilege of working with multiple entrepreneurs over these years, right? We've had the privilege of working with some incredible founders. Now, this entrepreneurial journey is, while it is very exciting, it is also very daunting, right? So the idea behind this podcast is to provide the founders, right, or entrepreneurs or young kids who want to start a business by themselves, right, some roadmap with respect to how to take this journey. Right. So throughout our journey, we've worked with founders who have transformed brilliant ideas into successful ventures. But we've also seen some equally brilliant ideas not really take off in the manner that we anticipated them to take off, right? And when you have these conversations with these founders, they share a lot of experiences, right? And at the end of it, they say, I wish I'd known all of these when starting up, right? Or they have conversations with us, and during those conversations, they'll be like, I wish we had this conversation while starting up, right? So then we thought, why don't we put out all of these together and create a series, right? Where we are first starting off with idea evaluation, then we'll move on to business models, then we'll move on to, let's say, financial metrics to track, how do you go to market, the legal structures that you can create, right? We'll work across different stages so that this is relevant not just for someone who's just starting out, it is also relevant for people who already have an existing business, but they're looking to scale up that existing business. We'll also cover topics like business expansion, right? So the idea is to take them through this journey. And the underlying factor again here is we are doing this so that by providing this roadmap, we are giving them clear action items at each stage. And with these action items, we hope that the chances of success will go up, right? And the chances of failure is reduced.
So in other words, it's like we are breaking down the complex journey of entrepreneurship into actionable items, which can be easily followed by the viewers.
Yes, that's right. That's the idea.
So let's get into the first segment of the podcast, idea evaluation.
Right.
So why do you think idea evaluation is very much required for current day entrepreneurs, sir?
Yeah. So idea evaluation is critical, right? Across all businesses, right? To understand why that is critical, let's look at why most startups fail, right? So broadly, three reasons. One is market validation failure, right? So they don't assess the size of the market, who's going to pay, how much are they willing to pay, etc. So a failure on market validation. Second is in terms of what are the resources that are required for me to pursue this idea, right? So there's always an underestimation of the resources that are required. And the third one is again timing.
Right.
From the timing perspective, are you there at the right time? Right? Exactly. So, and these are the common reasons why most startups fail. And when you do your idea evaluation properly, these are the things that we evaluate. Is there an adequate market, right? will you be able to raise resources, or do you have adequate resources to pursue this idea?
Right.
Is the timing right? So all of these can actually be avoided if you do your evaluation properly.
Right. Correct.
Right. And at this stage, I think I'll also want to add, see, a lot of times people use the words idea and opportunity interchangeably.
Okay.
Right. But the two are very different.
Okay.
Right. So let me put it this way. All opportunities are essentially, they stem from an idea, but it's not necessary that all ideas are opportunities.
Okay.
Right. And what do I mean by that? So let's say I have a brilliant idea saying that there's too much of congestion on this planet, so I'll make Mars habitable and I'll send people to Mars. Could be a brilliant idea, right?
Brilliant idea.
But is that an opportunity for me to pursue? Do I have the technological resources, financial resources, all other resources needed for me to pursue that idea? There's a difference.
Correct.
So an opportunity is something that you can actually pursue,
Hmm.
right? So there's a difference between an idea and an opportunity.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, what does that categorize as an idea or differentiates an idea from an opportunity?
Right. So essentially, let me put it in one simple line.
Right, sir.
An evaluated idea is an opportunity. Once you evaluate an idea and say that, yes, this is something for me to pursue, then it becomes an opportunity.
It's something that is achievable and gettable.
Right.
Right.
So broadly, if you have to break it down further, when can it be pursued? I think there are 4 things that we'll need to keep in mind, right? 1, when you pursue this idea, or does this idea add value?
Right.
Are you solving a problem? Are you catering to a significant need? That's the foremost thing, right?
Right.
Next, you'll need to look at, is this viable, right? Is it feasible?
Feasible.
Now, when you're looking at feasibility, again, you'll have to look at from a financial, commercial perspective, marketing perspective, technical perspective, as well as regulatory perspective.
Political stability.
Regulatory perspective,
Regulatory, sir.
right? So you can have a brilliant idea,
Mhm.
right? Which is solving a particular problem, which is meeting a particular need. But does the government allow you to
Allow
do
you
it?
to do that.
Right? So it should also be on the right side of the law. Then you'll also need to look at, yes, it is viable for now, but can I sustain this?
Right.
Right? So yes, I'll start this business, right? Because I'm solving a problem, because it is viable for now, but then can I sustain this in the long term? That's the third one. And the last one is what I would call the X factor, because there are enough and more ideas out there, right? Which are doing all of this. But the last one is the X factor, and that is where the fit comes in.
Hmm.
Brilliant idea, brilliant time for now for me to pursue it, right? And because if I do this, I'll add significant value. I have the resources to do, etc., commercially viable and all of that. But am I the right person to pursue this?
Oh.
Does it align with me as a person, as a founder? So that is where we're looking at the fit between the idea and the team.
So is it like if the idea is also very nice, fantastic, I should also look at, am I the right person to execute it?
Exactly. Am I the right person to execute it, or do I have the team to execute it? It's not just me, the team as a whole, right? So will we be the right set of people to be able to execute this idea, right? To pursue this idea.
So in other words, it's not just about looking in the idea as an idea. It's also in conjunction with what you can achieve versus what are your ideas.
And once you do all of these, once all of these 4 factors are evaluated, then you'll say, is this an opportunity for me to pursue
or not? These are all excellent criteria, sir. I think this is where the consultant come in handy to evaluate these ideas or opportunities.
So consultants can help, Venkat, but from my experience, entrepreneur is the best judge.
Oh.
And the reason I say that, see, I have massive respect for people who are starting up, right? So they take huge, inordinate amounts of risk, right? Entrepreneurial judgment is the most important factor. Yes, consultants can come in. They can come in with respect to collation of data and help you make an objective decision. Right. But that decision has to be the person who's looking at startup.
Understood. So in this case, say for example, an entrepreneur is watching our show who wants to pursue an idea and evaluate whether this idea is a opportunity, can transcend into a successful business venture or something like that. What is an approach that they can use?
So there are multiple frameworks, right? But again, I'll want to add a disclaimer here, like any other consultant, right? So frameworks are not rules.
Right.
Frameworks are tools.
Like
so
a guidance.
Which means to say, like we've outlined earlier at the intro itself, saying, see, all of these will reduce your chances of failure, right? But it's not like there's a secret sauce where you follow rule A, rule B, rule C, and then your idea is an enterprise, right? It doesn't work like that, right? So that is where entrepreneurial judgment is very essential. But coupled with these frameworks, right, your chances of success
Being
increase and
successful.
chances of failure reduce. So there is one framework which talks about, at a very base level, I think all entrepreneurs must look at this before starting up, right? Where we are looking at 3 criteria, right? So one is the opportunity, right? How good or attractive the opportunity is for me to pursue. Second is, do I have the resources to chase or pursue that opportunity, right? And the third one is the fit again, the team, and is the team right? Yeah, the founder and idea fit, team fit, right? So these 3 factors. Now, when it comes to these 3 factors, again, we're using a lot of these terms here, but how do I actually evaluate, right? I think the good starting point would be when I say, is the opportunity really, exciting? Is it something that
you can pursue in the long time?
You'll also need to look at, is there a market, right? Is there a market that exists? Is there a market that is ready to pay at that point in time, right? So that is an opportunity.
This is about whether the customer is willing to avail the service.
Are there enough customers and are they willing to pay? As simple as that, right? So in that, again, I think for someone who's just starting up, they'll need to look at the size of the market. First leg is the opportunity leg, right? So a critical part of that opportunity leg is market. How big is my market and how do I go about it? So typically most of the B school graduates would know something called as TAM, SAM and SOM.
Oh.
Okay, so TAM, SAM and SOM, that's right. Most of the most of the MBA folks would know this, right? It's also important for founders to evaluate that, right? And what do I mean by TAM, SAM and SOM? So TAM is essentially total addressable market. Okay, so I'll give out these 3. So TAM is total addressable market, SAM is serviceable addressable market, and SOM is serviceable obtainable market.
Obtainable.
Right? Okay, let's take an analogy, right? So let's say we're looking at, I want to make some educational kits for school kids between grade 1 and grade 5. Let's take a hypothetical example, right? So then what is my TAM, total addressable market? I look at all the kids that are enrolled across different schools all over the country, right? And then I say that the total number of kids into what is the price that they'll pay for these kids will be my total addressable market. Right? So that's the total market size. Because I'm catering to these kids, right? Then, now from that TAM, will I be able to service all the kids?
Definitely
not. There could be geographical restrictions. There could be other restrictions. Maybe my kids are only relevant for a particular curriculum. Maybe it is only relevant for a CBSE or a state board or an ICSE. So again, there are restrictions with respect to what I can cater to or what I can service to. That is where SAM comes in. So let's say hypothetically again, for whatever reason, I can only cater to schools in Bangalore. So then what happens is, I'll narrow down the size of the entire market to the number of schools in Bangalore and the number of kids studying in these schools in Bangalore in those grades 1 to 5, right? And that is my SAM, serviceable addressable market. Now, then comes serviceable obtainable market. Now, it is not necessary that just because there are those many kids in Bangalore, schools in Bangalore, it's not necessary that they'll all buy from me. It is possible that some of them would not even take these kits. It is possible that there are competitors who also sell similar kits and kids would go there. So again, out of the SAM, right? What is the obtainable market? That becomes serviceable obtainable market. So it is extremely critical for people to look at what is the total size, what is it that I can service, and from that serviceable addressable market, how much can I realistically expect to cater to? So that becomes serviceable obtainable market.
Obtainable or tap into, right? This is ideally like dropping down or funneling down the particular segment that you can cater to.
Perfect, right? This is on the market side. Again, there are structural changes. So there are saturated markets, there are new markets, there are disruptions that will come into the markets, etc. Right? For example, when GST was introduced, there were structural changes, right? And because of the structural changes, a huge opportunity got created for companies in reg tech or compliance, right? There are enough and more players who started building up technology in compliance with the new law.
Right? They kind of leverage the situation to it.
Exactly. Another example that comes to my mind is, let's say, during demonetization of post-demon, there is a lot of opportunity that is created for payment,
UPI
based fintech applications. Right? So opportunities get created. Right? So it is important for you to address, is there a market for me to work with, and will I be able to pursue this thing, right? So a key part of opportunity evaluation is the size of the market. The second one is the resources. Yes, there is an opportunity that exists, right? But do I have the resources to pursue that opportunity? Whatever, let's say in the very same school example that I mentioned. Yes, there is a market there that I can reach out potentially, right? But do I have resources to execute it?
So what do you exactly mean by resources here, sir? Is just human resource or the people that you can hire available to work, or what is
a good question, because in fact, a lot of times when I speak about resources, people assume capital. People assume it is only financial resources, right? Resources include, of course, financial capital, right? That is equity. Resources also will include your technological abilities. Resources will include your marketing ability or marketing resources, right? If you are in a very regulated space, your ability to navigate through those regulations and compliance, right? All of these are resources.
Right.
Now, another important factor that we need to keep in mind, Venkat, here is that, see, it's not necessary that I own all of these resources.
Okay.
If to pursue my idea, if I need X, let's say millions of dollars, it's not necessary that I own that. But what is in question is, will you be able to access those resources? Right? So either I should own those resources or I should be able to access these resources. So in case of, let's say, equity or capital, the question is, maybe you don't own it, you don't have that capital yourself, but do you have the ability to raise that capital?
Right. So access to the right people who can help you in that.
Right. So all of that will come under resources. Do I have access to raise capital? Do I have access or ability to implement the technological requirements that are needed for me to pursue this idea? Do I have the access to marketing resources to be able to take this, go to the market and then scale it up, right? So do I have the resources to navigate the complex regulation to be able to implement this idea? All of these are part of resources.
So it's like a cluster of resources that needs to be present to keep your business up and running, is what you're meaning.
Yeah. So first to need to kickstart your business, then to keep your business up and running and expand continuously, right? So that's the second leg. The third leg, again, like I said, the X factor in our previous section also is the team.
Right.
Again, there must be a compatibility factor between the founding team and the idea itself. And that is what we're looking at in the third leg, right? Essentially. So again, would it help if all the founding members are from a particular domain?
In some cases, I would say yes, or I think in other cases, maybe a no, because if you're something to say, like for example, if you're having a tech-based startup, where I'm having a strong tech team, which is my built-in core. I would say the more number of people that are expert in this domain, or if I'm having expertise in this domain, let's make it easier for my market entry is what I feel.
It'll make it easier if you have more number of tech people, but will it help you if you only have tech guys and not have anyone with finance expertise?
I don't think
who will help you raise finance, who will help you spend money as per a particular plan?
No.
And if you don't have any marketing expertise to take this brilliant tech product that all of you together have built, but if you don't have a marketing expertise to take it to the market, right? So it is important, yes, depending upon what that idea is, there is a core domain, and it is important that majority of them should
belong to that
domain. But having said that, what is critical is for the founding team to always have complementary skills.
Right.
If one guy is good at tech, also have one guy who's good at selling your idea and selling the tech to customers, right? Also have one guy who's good at numbers. So having complementary skills is extremely critical, and that is what you'll need to keep in mind when you're assembling the founding team together.
So the more diverse your team is and level of expertise that
your chances of success are that much higher. Right? So, and again, another factor that we'll need to keep in mind here is, yes, I'll need to have diversity within my own team, but I'll also need to have access to, and in fact, there's an overlap between your resources and fit. Right? I'll also need to have access to people with this skill set. It could be advisors, it could be mentors, it could be investors, right?
You'll the right kind of people, the right set of people.
So when we speak of resources in our second leg, we'll also need to evaluate that. Right? And that will also fall into this, right? So complementary skills is something that is extremely critical. You'll also need to see, all of you will have to agree to a shared vision. That is extremely critical. You can have different perspectives. But you'll all have to agree to that shared vision. Yeah. So the other thing that typically you'll all need to keep in mind when you're evaluating the third leg, which is the team, is also that ensure that the initial founding team members all have skin in the game. So that they're all vested in the long-term success of the venture and not looking at a short-sighted.
So they have something at stake that they can be dedicated
absolutely, to. Absolutely, right? So when you put these three together, I'll again summarize. I'll take a step back and summarize.
Yes,
this is from a model called the Timmons model, right? So essentially, you're looking at the opportunity, how attractive or how good is the opportunity. Do you have the resources to pursue this opportunity? And third, do I have the team to be able to execute?
Now that we have understood the Timmons model, sir, is there anything that the entrepreneurs can look at to extensively carry forward the research in terms of idea evaluation? Is there any principles that you can think of?
Yeah. So there are other frameworks as well, Venkat. So I think the model that we looked at is 3 dimensions we'd evaluated, right? There are also multiple other models, I think, but again, another thing that comes top of my mind is the 7-domain model, right? So where we looked at 3 domains here, we're talking about 7 domains, right? So first, I think before I get into each of these domains, we'll also need to understand the difference between market and industry. Again, a lot of times these words are used interchangeably, right? Yeah. Market is different from industry. When you're talking about a market, you're looking at who's going to buy. But when you're talking about an industry, you're looking at the group of sellers. So, for example, fintech market. Who are we talking about? It is us, all of us as users who use different fintech products, right? But fintech industry refers to
the person,
all the players who are involved in the fintech industry, right? Starting from the regulators to the banks to NBFCs to the technology companies who are now partnering with these fintech financial players, right? Regulated entities. All of these comprise of the fintech industry.
So it's not just the competitors who is giving the similar kind of service. It's about all the ecosystem.
The entire ecosystem that is there. Absolutely, right? So that is where industry comes in. So you have market as well as industry, which are two different things. And in 7 domains model, you're needed to look at market separately at a macro level, industry separately at a macro level, right? So the first one is market at a macro level. Now, I think we've spent some time on market at a macro level because in the earlier domain also we discussed about your TAM, SAM, SOM and all of that, right? So it's the same thing. Maybe I think one of the things which will help people out in doing this assessment is, now, yes, I understood what is TAM, I understood what is SAM, what is SOM, but where do I get the data? Right? What is my starting point? So what you'll need to understand is, as far as macro factors for market are concerned, you'll have enough secondary information out there. There are also enough number of industry reports published by government agencies, enough number of reports out there. So you can always fall back onto your secondary data as far as
this is like accessible data to the general
public. Absolutely. Obviously, if you are very specific in terms of going one level above, then that's when you can actually pay for it. So basically, the market at a macro level talks about how attractive is the market attractiveness, right? Now, when you're evaluating the market attractiveness, one is the size. You'll also need to look at what changes are happening from a social, cultural, demographic, economy perspectives, right? For example, countries with aging population will have different demand for certain products, right? Countries with younger population will have different demands for products, right? So not just the size of the market, also look at it so that you can pick up with respect to what products and services are best fit for that particular geography or that particular demography, for that particular, social factors, cultural factors, etc. So that's at a macro level. So look at the size of the market and look at, are there any other factors affecting
how attractive is it, rather, in all the criteria that you have to examine across.
Right. So that's market at a macro level. Then comes market at a micro level. Now, before I even get into that, let me actually say this. I have spoken with multiple people who would want to start, people who have started and all of that, right? I've always found that people spend enough amount of time and effort and resources on evaluating the macro factors, but they'll spend very little effort on the micro factors. So micro factors are very simple. Market at a micro level is what we are evaluating, right? So we've already seen market, macro. Now we're looking at market at a micro level. Now, when you're looking at market at a micro level, we are looking at, if I am an individual customer or a consumer, how does that appeal to me? If you have a product or service, how does that product or service appeal to me as an individual customer? Exactly. Right. What pain point are you solving for me? What problem are you solving for me? Right. A. B. at an individual level, how do I perceive your product or service to be better than what I have? What other options I have?
Is it closely related to USP, sir? Unique selling point?
Differentiator is coming in there, right? Essentially, you need to differentiate yourself, right? It's also linked to industry. We'll come to that later.
Right.
But at an individual level, what is that appeal? Right? So as a customer, what is that appeal that I have, right? So for me to come and buy your product or service. So this is at a micro level. So macro, we evaluate
industry,
right? No, industry will look at it separately. Right. Macro is at an overall market size and the trends in the market and all of that.
Right.
Micro is at an individual level. How does that appeal to an individual customer? From the perspective of an individual customer, what are the perceived benefits that your product or service offer that others are not offering, right? That is what makes me buy, right? And this is totally critical, but a lot of people miss out. Like I said, the focus is so much on, okay, the size of the market is X, Y, Z. But at a micro level, what is your appeal to an individual customer?
They miss out on that, which is actually
very crucial, right? So what I generally suggest people is get a typical customer persona right. Imagine who your typical customer
and
is,
what he wants from
what he or she wants from you, right? And yeah, that is absolutely critical. You need to understand your customer better also to take certain decisions in future about how you would want to price your product. What's the pricing strategy with which you'll go to the market, right? What is their propensity to, let's say, pay more, pay less? All of that depends on your customer persona.
Can I put it in this word when I say that if I'm able to solve my micro level problems in a good way, my macro level positioning will actually be proportionately,
you will figure that out, right? Why? Because obviously, because macro is an aggregation of all micro, right?
Exactly.
So obviously, if you solve a problem for me at an individual level, there are enough. So then your question is, how many people like me are there out there?
Exactly.
That's the only question that you need to ask at a macro level. Yeah. So now the question is, how do I evaluate it? Macro is easy. We said look at secondary sources because the objective of this ThoughtCast, which you told me, is we need to make it very relevant for people who are starting out. So yes, they're convinced that yes, I need to look at micro level. But how do I actually go ahead and evaluate it, right? So one is think of a customer persona. Imagine who your customers are. Is it aging men, middle-aged men, working women, young kids, of what age group?
To know whom you're targeting. Actually.
Yes, right. And in terms of know who you're targeting and understand them better in terms of their behaviors. Yes. How much are they ready to pay, etc.
Spending patterns, customer behavior.
Absolutely, right? And then think about what is it that is making them pay for your product or service, right? That is extremely critical. So again, there are certain things like called mom test, friends test, etc. All that you need to ask yourself is, if I make this product or service, and if this customer is, let's say, if I have a friend who's a similar customer, would he or she pay for it? Or if I make a product which is relevant for my mom, would my mom even buy that product? Yeah. That is how you do a micro level evaluation, right? So micro level evaluation is always from surveys from potential customers. This is all at a primary
level of data collection.
Exactly. Yeah. So this evaluation has to happen at a primary level. This is when typically you would create forms, surveys from different customer groups, patterns, etc. That is how you do the micro level evaluation. The third domain is at an industry level. At an industry level, we're looking at a macro level, right? So again, this is how attractive is my industry at a macro level. And this assessment, like we've already discussed, is done using Porter's 5 forces model.
Right.
So do you recall anything from Porter's 5 forces model, Venkat?
Yeah, I think I can state it out for you. One is threat of new entry.
Sure.
Power of supplier.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Power of consumer. And
power of suppliers, power of consumer.
And the threat of substitutes. And the last one is competitive rivalry.
Perfect. So you got the 5 forces right. Again, 2 things I want to add before we get into each of these forces, Venkat, is so most industries are unattractive.
Oh.
Right. So before you do this assessment, you can actually take it that most industries turn out to be unattractive when you evaluate these 5 forces. A. B. When you're looking at this, the word itself is forces. That means to say, the conditions that exist today need not essentially be the same 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So this is a continuous process of evaluation.
It denotes the dynamic nature of
exactly. So ideally, you're supposed to do this evaluation before you start your venture in that particular industry. So now when you're looking at the 5 forces, you said threat of new entrants. So obviously, threat of new entrants is directly related to barriers of entry. If there are low barriers of entry, more people can come in. And when more people come in, what happens? My margins tend to be perennially low. Right? Because at every stage, if I want to increase my prices, then again there's a new entrant who will come and disrupt, right? So my margins tend to be very low. So in fact, that is the reason why. Okay, let me take a couple of examples. The barriers of entry in telecom is very high. The barriers of entry for you to start a small cafe or a restaurant is very low.
Correct.
Right? Why is that? Because there are other factors. So for when people are evaluating threat of new entry, you need to understand why these barriers get created. Let's look at telecom as an example. Why are barriers of entry very high there? So barriers of entry high, threat of entrance low, right? But barriers of entry high because highly regulated, right? I can't just say I'll start a telecom company now, right? Extremely capital intensive. So these are some of the factors which will create those barriers, right? So that is what determines your threat of new entrants. So, and again, if there is a constant threat of new entrants, we've already mentioned that your attractiveness is low because you can't make
more money or
more money.
It can't be lucrative in the
absolutely right. So, what's the next one?
Threat of new entry, buyer power.
Buyer power. Again, what is the power that the buyer holds in that particular industry, right? Now, that is again directly linked to how many people are offering similar product or services to the buyer. Does the buyer have a choice to swap between you and another competitor, right? What is the third one?
Third one is supplier power.
Yeah. Again, so when does supplier hold a lot of power?
When he is able to dictate the terms in market, I believe.
Exactly. And when would they do it? When I am dependent on one or very few guys.
Monopoly or duopoly again.
Right. So where I don't have too much options but to take my raw materials from him, take my inputs from them, then again I'm reliant on them. Right. So they hold a substantial power. Having said that, I think you'll also need to look at how these forces evolve. Let's talk about buyer power and supplier power in the context of, let's say, ride-hailing industry. Okay. So few years ago, I was actually, as a customer, I was lured into using the apps. It could be any of these ride-hailing apps, not just one company, not just one Uber, Ola. I'm talking about industry.
Any aggregator for that.
Right? Industry in general, right? So they were luring me with discounts, etc., right? Now, what happened to all of that?
Now they became the dictators, I believe.
Why? Because somewhere there's a change in the force.
So I think it's something to do with make your patterns, customer behavior aligned to their thoughts, and then getting you.
Absolutely, they are investing into changing the behavioral patterns.
Right.
Once the behavioral patterns change, then this force, the dynamics of this force shifts. Again, you need to understand your product and service well in terms of when I start off, what is it that I need to do, or where is that industry, not just you need to do, where is that industry as far as buyer power is concerned, and how will it evolve over time.
That's where you said in the initial terms also that this market is dynamic. The industry is dynamic. It can change at any moment.
Right. Same ride-hailing example can be extended to maybe not in the perfect sense, but somewhere a closer analogy in terms of supplier power. Just look at ride-hailing companies and the cabs that were enlisted on these platforms. Right. There was an era where the companies were chasing the cab people to register, offering them incentives.
Right. Even
so
the aggregator grew powerful than both the sides.
Then what else?
Threat of rivalry, I think.
Competitive rivalry and threat of substitutes is what we are left with. Competitive rivalry is again very interesting. So this is how it is, right? Think of intense competition. For me, I can easily think of Coke, Pepsi. I can think of Apple, Samsung. Intense rivalry, right? So you need to understand the industry that you're getting into. How intense is that rivalry? So typically, some of the factors that you'll always need to look into is whenever there is a growing market, there is also a huge potential for the market to grow without investing too much, without pushing too much. The competitive rivalry will typically not be very intense. On the other hand, as in when your market is going towards a saturated market, I'll have to play, all the players will have to play within the same market,
right?
So that is a factor that you'll need to consider. So this is directly linked to what stage of industry is the market, or what stage of market we are in, right? The other thing that you'll also need to look at when you're looking at intensity of the competition or the rivalry is, So typically markets with high exit costs. We spoke about entry costs, huge capex, all of those are barriers to entry. At the same time, if there are high exit costs, typically what companies do is they tend to remain and compete in the same industry without
for the
going out.
longest of periods.
And when they're there and competing, naturally what will happen is you can't make a very high margin in that industry.
Right.
And the last one, I think, is threat of substitutes. That's a fairly simplistic
It's
thing.
easily replicatable. It's
Exactly. So if I am a consumer,
right,
and if I have a substitute which I can always go to, and which is coming to me at a lower price, obviously I would always switch.
Choose that. Right.
Any rational consumer would switch, right? So that's what we learned, right? So when we're talking about the industry attractiveness at a macro level, evaluate these 5 forces. The fourth one is again industry at a micro level. So I understand my industry at a macro level. Now at a micro level, do I have something in me as a company for me to sustain in this industry?
Okay.
So we've evaluated the attractiveness of the industry. Now let's say I got into this industry. Can I sustain in this industry in the long term? Now, typically for any company to sustain in the industry, now you've got a foothold in, right? Now, what do you think is required for them to sustain?
I think they need to keep up with the product or service, the quality, whatever they're entering. Sure. It should be going on a straight pace.
Correct.
And from the longevity perception, I think the amount of sales that you're actually doing, your budget versus your estimate versus your performance evaluation.
All of that is fine. Right. Everyone does that.
Right.
Right. But here we're talking about what is it that you do differently so that you can sustain in the long term. I cannot remain competitive in any industry by doing what everyone does.
Absolutely.
Right. So the differentiating factors here are, do I have any intellectual property which is proprietary in nature for which I have licenses? That is what differentiates me from others.
Right.
Not just IP.
IP, right?
Not just IP. There can be other factors.
There can be a unique factor that makes you.
For example, I mean, consider an industry which has been existing for ages and decades, construction, real estate, right? You can look at either of these industries. There are, even till date, there are a lot of companies that are known to be very frugal in the way they spend.
Yeah.
And that is their USP, and that is why they are able to survive for so long. Look at Bangalore real estate. There are, even till date, there are a list of builders who are like, yeah, these guys are very frugal in spending, and that is why they are different. Right? There are, again, construction, real estate, let's take that as an example. There are some companies which are known for their quick turnaround times. Right? A quick turnaround time. So you can trust this company with this because they turn around fast. Right? Now, how do you achieve these? If you build some optimization in your organizational processes. Right? So you build that optimization into your organization process where you're doing something better than others. So it could be at an IP level, or it could be at an organization process level, operational level, where you do better than others, and not just once, you do it continuously so that becomes your differentiating factor, and that is what will give you that advantage to sustain.
This is the factor that makes you different from others.
Then you can sustain with that. Like I said, I'll come back to the point that if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you can sustain for longer. Absolutely. Right? Because at some point, all markets will saturate, decline, eventually, right? There are stages eventually, right? So when that happens, eventually you will have to
exit the market. Yeah.
You'll be forced to exit the market.
Right.
Hence, at an industry level, identify what are those factors which you can do, which will give you that sustainability. So yes, Venkat, we've looked at 4 domains now, right? From the 7 domains model. The rest of the 3 are all related to the team. Okay. Right? So one is in terms of the fit between the team and the idea, which we've already covered, right? The aspirations of the founder, are they aligned with the idea? So let's say I'm at a particular stage in my career or personal life, and I'll need to invest time into other avenues, whereas this is also a very stressful thing. How do I balance the two? So you need to look at the aspiration and the fit between the founder's inherent traits and the business, etc. That is what is evaluated in the 5th domain. The next domain is about, again, the ability of the founding team to execute critical success factors. Okay. So any business, for it to start and grow, there are certain factors which are critical success factors, right? So what is the ability of this team to achieve those factors, right? Yeah. Again, this is something that we've covered enough in the earlier domain about complementary skills, etc. Right. The next one is, again, how connected is the founding team or the founder specifically up and down the value chain. What do I mean by up and down the value chain? Across your value chain, right? What is your network like? How connected are you? So will you be able to get those people to So let's say it could be my suppliers, right? Or it could be let's say the distribution channel. It could be my investors, my ability to raise funds, right? Etc. All the stakeholders, how connected I am.
What are the common red flags that you have seen when an entrepreneur actually typically pitches his idea to you or comes across with an idea or an opportunity evaluation?
Right.
What are the common red flags that you have seen?
Good. So Venkat, I think when we're covering common red flags, we need to look at two aspects, right? There are certain things which people pitch not knowing that or not convinced with that, but they still go ahead and include it in the pitch.
Right.
That is still okay. I'm not going to get into that. That is for that individual to figure out, right? But there are a lot of things which people don't know they're doing it wrong, right? And they do it.
Right.
So let's cover some of that, right?
Sure.
So first one, which a lot of people think it is good or it is in vogue or in trend, is what I typically call is solutions chasing problems. Okay. Like, let's say when I go to evaluate business plan competitions or startup pitch competitions, right? So typically there are always certain sectors, certain trends which are always in vogue.
Right.
Let's say a couple of years ago, every other plan would have blockchain in it. Yeah, you're using the word blockchain, but what are we doing with blockchain?
There's no value addition.
In the last year now, and maybe I think in the last 2-3 years is the trend. Every other pitch will have AI in it. You're using AI, but what problem are you solving? Yeah, just for the heck of it, you think you use the words AI and blockchain into the pitch. People will get convinced to invest in you. That is not going to happen, right? Just because you have AI in your pitch, are people going to buy your product or service? That is not going to happen, right? So you can first have solutions like this and then say, now I'll figure out what problem to solve using AI.
Right.
You can't retrofit problems into solutions.
It could be the other way around as well.
Exactly. First, that is how our entire thought
idea,
right?
Yeah,
idea and
exactly.
opportunity. Are you solving any problems?
Problems.
First, identify the problem that you're solving. Then we'll see if blockchain is the best way to solve, if AI is the best way to solve, and then
we'll get into the solution.
Get into it, right? But a lot of time I see people think that it is now AI is in vogue. So anything I'll put AI into it and then I'll take it to the market, I'll take it to the investor. That is not going to work. That's a big red flag, right? Second thing is, just because your market size is big at a macro level, right? Because I see people coming and telling us saying, okay, I'm just giving an analogy here so that people get it. Everybody eats food. Right. So the food market is $1 trillion. So if someone comes to me and telling me that even if I make a 1% dent into that market, my company would be whatever.
1 rupee from each of the Indian population.
It doesn't work like that, right? It doesn't work like that. That is why it is important to understand the three concepts that we told. TAM could be very big.
Yeah.
But what is your serviceable addressable market and what is your serviceable obtainable market?
Very.
And linked to this is this one, undermining competition. Right? You are overestimating or exaggerating your market size. Next is you're underestimating your competition, saying there's no competition. Always understand, if there is no competition, it is also likely that there is no one who's going to pay for your product. But because if there is enough opportunity there, people would have done something there, right? So if there is no competition, then that comes with certain other aspects.
Right.
Maybe there is a lot of barriers to entry. Maybe that it requires a huge investment into it, huge capex into it, right? So never undervalue or underestimate competition. Don't write it off, right? So typically, and then again, another big red flag is in terms of underestimating the resources and efforts that is needed.
Yeah.
I mean, sounds fancy, market is big, opportunity is there, but what do I need to do or pull in to be able to execute this? Massive underestimation there, right? And typically you throw numbers at them, you throw facts at them, and then they're like, no, I'll raise funds. It doesn't work like that. You need to have a very clear vision with respect to what are the resources that are needed at each stage. Right?
And how much work that does it involve in? I think many people also, look at the fanciness of it, which is the tip of the iceberg, right?
Correct, exactly.
People wants to be that founder who's well known and reputed, but I think they don't know actually what.
Exactly. So because see, idea always looks fancy. Because idea is novel, right? That's the whole concept of an idea. Idea is novel, something new, fancy, right? It's only when you're evaluating that you bring out all of these hard facts into it to see if it's an opportunity, right? And one of the hard facts is Yes, idea is fancy, but to implement it, to execute it,
What is the amount of work
that is not fancy.
Right.
You need to do a lot of dirty work. You need to burn a lot of money, right? You need to convince a lot of people.
Yeah.
This is something that is massively underestimated by most startup enthusiasts, right? So these are some of the common red flags that I've seen in my experience.
So, yes, sir, thank you for those valuable insights. Is it safe to say that we have covered most of this entrepreneurial journey in this website, in this episode?
No. So I think the title of this series is Idea to Enterprise, right?
Okay. Yeah.
We've just spoken about idea today, right? But for idea to go to enterprise, like for example, today we've discussed only about idea and idea evaluation, right? So I think what we also need to discuss is in terms of this next stages. So yes, idea is evaluated,
right?
But then what is the business model that I need to work with, right? Then what are the legal structures, what are the options available, what works, what doesn't work for certain industries, certain businesses, right? So legal structures. Then again, how do I raise funds, right? Then in terms of what metrics do I track?
Seems like a vast ocean.
All of this is still one stage, right? And then comes the stage of how do I optimize my processes? How do I become a larger company? How do I go from a person-driven company to a process-driven company? So I think when you kept the title or the series as Idea to Enterprise, it encompasses all of this, right? So we'll cover each of these in different episodes, right, over the course of time. But what I would recommend is, Venkat, like how all the models that we discussed now, it is not that we are talking theoretical out of thin air, right? So we will have a template in our office which we follow for 7 domains, right? We'll have something for the Timmons model, right, etc. So what I would encourage you to do is, in the links to this, I don't know how you guys figure it out, in the links give out Excel or PDF sheets, right? So that it will help people who want to go through this journey, and then you can encourage them to throw in their comments or reach out to us, or anyway, like we have this thing where we do free consultations to a lot of people. The initial consultation is always free. We can always, that is something that we've been doing for the past so many years, right? And we can extend that to the audience of your ThoughtCast as well. For all the effort that you put in, maybe we can give that away.
Wow, thank you so much, sir. That is very nice. Actually, viewers, did you hear this? You can get your free consultation book right now. The link is below. And as sir said, we'll also, give away a lot of ebooks and guides that can help you scale up or even evaluate your idea in the stage. And I'm very honored to have you as a guest of our inaugural podcast. No?
Thanks, Venkat.
Thanks for being here. And this is me, Venkat. Follow us and like and subscribe for such more interesting content. Until then, ideate, evaluate, grow and thrive.